All right, it's KFC Radio. Robbie Fox is in with us, our wrestling guy, because we have, in my opinion, the greatest, most entertaining wrestler of all time, Stone Cold Steve Austin, in the building.
I'm not going to argue with you.
As you shouldn't, man.
I'm going to sit up. My wife will kill me for my posture. She says I slump too much.
We've been working on that.
Yeah,
you get yourself one of those bras that pull your shoulders back?
I've never used one, but
They work.
I'm open-minded nowadays. I'm back when I was Stone Cold 24/7, never considered it. Now, I'd consider it.
How much would you say you've toned it down since the days of Stone Cold 24/7?
Oh, well, professionally and personally, drastically.
Yeah?
Yeah, I turned back into a civilian. It took a couple while.
That's a good way to put it.
years to dial it down, and then I kind of go from zombie mode to where you go, and that's how you live life, to go to civilian mode. So
Now,
currently, I'm in civilian mode.
You say you're in civilian mode. You still look like
Not a-
Stone Cold.
not a
I
civilian,
can
bro.
see your veins from here. Why haven't you decided to just be like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to get fat and stuff.
Man, I can't turn into just a tub of guts.
Why?
Man,
It's so easy.
Well, I know,
We're really good at it here, man. We can give you tips.
Hey, don't get me wrong. You get me in the hunting season, and we're down there just before I sold my ranch. But we're down there drinking IPAs and margaritas, for 2 months straight. I'd go back, and in my mirrors down there, I still look pretty good. And I'm like, hey, man, I'm kind of maintaining this. I look pretty good. Then I get back to my mirror in L.A., and it's like, holy shit, what happened? And then, of course, my wife's got to hear me bitch and complain, like, how did you let me do this? And then it's like, trying to take it off is so much harder than putting it on. So stay in the gym, stay active. And it's kind of a love-hate thing, man. I dig it. And if I was to turn into a pile of shit, man, like, I just got this gig. I know we're going to talk about it straight up, Steve Austin. So I can't be on camera just looking like shit.
No, I know what
You know what I mean?
I mean, we
Steve,
do
let me
it.
tell you
It doesn't
something.
feel
We're
good,
on
though.
camera 24/7.
Hey.
You want me to pop the top on this thing? I'll show you something that looks like shit.
And you never. If I fall upon hard times, then I just absolutely have to make a comeback. If I have to, because I need the money, I got to be ready.
Are you saying there's going to be a comeback in the cards? Steve Austin, right
Steve,
now.
don't
Say
say
it
that
to
in front
camera.
of me.
I'm
Don't
just,
say that
I'm
in front
just
of me.
effing with
Too
you guys.
excited.
I ain't
Too
doing
excited.
shit.
I mean,
Don't get Bob's hopes up.
We'll take it.
No, man.
No, I mean, it's funny because when I was growing up as a kid, it was like it was, I guess, the end of like, is wrestling real or wrestling fake, right? And I always laughed at anybody who thought it was real. But then when it comes to you, I expect you to be like Stone Cold Steve Austin. Like in my head, the Undertaker's a character, Mankind's a character. With you, I expected you to be just like your character. How much of it is you and how much of it is ramped up?
It is. It's one and the same, and it's just me. And it took me a while to figure this out. But when I played sports, playing baseball, throwing the discus and track, whatever, I'm highly competitive and I have a killer instinct. And so, what it took was 7.5 years to learn that. First of all, learn the mechanics of the business, the 101 stuff, and then you learn, the psychology of the business, and you do something to elicit a response. But then finally, it was like, hey, man, when I came up with the Stone Cold thing, and it was this persona, I realized that, even though the business is a work, it's the intensity level which has to be there. So it's almost like, it's work, but I'm so competitive that I just dial myself back up to that mode. So it really is a shoot, but it's just me. If we were fixed to throw down right now, you would get Stone Cold. You know what I mean? So it wasn't a stretch. And I think my connection to the people had a lot to do with the fact that, yes, it was real, and it was an intensity level with which people could identify and relate to. And then all of a sudden you throw in anti-authority stuff with Vince McMahon.
Yeah.
People can definitely get into that. So it was many things which fed the totality of everything, which combined to be what it is. But I'm not the Undertaker. I'm not this guy. I am me, but dialed up. And like right now, just because I'm so excited about talking to you guys, I'm probably number 5. If you keep me going and if I get to 11, shit's gonna happen.
Let's go to 11, man. Let's fucking go to 11. Let's take it wherever you want to go. What would you say is the most important part of Stone Cold Steve Austin? Because I feel like you have the name coming from a cup of tea, which I think a lot of people would be surprised by that. You sipping on a cup of tea, right. Stone Cold. I think the glass breaking and the music is incredibly important. I think the clothing's important. I think the catch lines are important.
The stunner,
the actual finisher move. What do you think is the main thing that took it from a good wrestler to an immortal WWE superstar?
It was everything that you mentioned, and it was also key steps along the way. Like for instance, back when we were doing Monday Night Raw, and the times were down, and we would do a live Monday Night Raw, and then we'd do another one, and then we'd go post production. and because we couldn't afford to go live every week. And so I noticed that when they started doing those shows, that they were giving me some chances on commentary. And when I watched the shows back, they were editing some of the things I said because they had the ability to in post. And I saw Vince walking across the parking lot one time, and I just kind of started being the Stone Cold character. And we're going to Lowell, Massachusetts, and we're going in for TV. And I didn't know Vince very well at the time. Of course, he was my boss, but I didn't have the close relationship that would develop years later. And I said, "Hey, Vince," I said, "can I ask you a question?" And he goes, "Yeah." I said, "Hey, man, I noticed when I watch Raw back, you guys are editing a lot of things I'm saying." I said, "Why is that?" He goes, "Well, quite frankly, Steve, you're popping the guys in the truck, meaning the production truck. And if you can get a response from the guys in the truck, you can get a response from anybody, right? Because they've seen and heard it all."
Yeah.
I said, "Vince," I says, "listen, you got guys here 7 feet, 7'1", 300, 330 pounds. I'm 250, bald head, goatee, black trunks, black boots. If you take my personality from me, I can't compete. But if you give me my personality, I can compete." And that's when he stopped restricting me, and that's when he started letting everything fly, and it all turned into what it turned into. But the bottom line is I'm basically me. People could identify with me and the intensity level.
I feel like the anti-authority is what kind of roped in maybe. I mean, Bob here is like a wrestling nut. I grew up watching it, Hulk Hogan, shit like that. But what like pulled me in was the Attitude Era. And I feel like you just being like anti-boss, fuck the man, is what the average person could join in. Would you say like the non-crazy wrestling fan?
Yeah, because it transcended the business, and it's like even if you were not a hardcore wrestling fan or a casual wrestling fan, and all of a sudden you hear all the guys talking about it, and it's like, "Hey, man, you got to check us. I know you don't watch wrestling, but you got to just watch this one guy." And all of a sudden, that's what happened. It became that water cooler talk, and it transcended the business. And we feuded on and off for 2 years. And that was like the icing on the cake. And, like when Bret Hart came back from a knee injury and he handpicked me to wrestle in the Garden, the Survivor Series, about 96. And then, we do 13 in Chicago when, we did the double turn. So it was matches along the way, that kept building those things that would, lead to what it did.
I feel like you were the first. I don't know how into the internet you are, but I don't know if you know what memes are. I feel like you were a living meme. Like when we were younger, it would be like, we want to Stone Cold things. It'd be like, throw us milks in the cafeteria, and you just slam milks together. That was. I think that was the first thing. What you're saying is like water cooler talk for like us when we were younger. It was like we just want to reenact exactly like whenever you were happy, you Stone Colded stuff.
And it's cool because, like, and the little things like that, or the totality of an angle or storyline, people want to live vicariously through, the things that we're doing, and that you remember and are emotional to you, or evoke emotion from your feelings, or whether it's enthusiasm or anger or happiness, whatever. When you can affect people on an emotional level, that sticks with people for life.
Without a doubt, for sure.
What would you say would be your? I think of Booker T in the grocery store as one of the more like ridiculous things you've ever done. What would you say is the one that sticks out in your mind as far as wrestling goes?
Man, that was pretty ridiculous.
When you're doing the pizza, it's amore, smashing them with the dough.
Right? That is all improv. That's all ad lib, And I did walk through that store and see, what was available, and of course, obviously, we're in a supermarket.
You got everything.
Everything was available.
Are you like a kid in a candy store, like so excited to record that before you do?
It was cool, and the thing about it was Booker T was so cool, and me and Booker got along since as soon as he came into WCW way back in the day. So we've been friends forever, and to do that. But like as far as ridiculous, I think when the Undertaker and Paul Bearer were going to embalm me, it's kind of pushed it a little bit. That was one of those ones where I kind of like, is this a good idea? Oh, goddamn, Steve, that's a good idea. Horse shit, it was ridiculous.
You're talking about like the good ideas and whatnot. Do you think the Attitude Era could work today with like the way social media reacts to everything, with the way just kind of people are? Do you think that kind of, I guess, anti-authority would work?
Oh, absolutely.
You think so?
Yeah, I think people want to be entertained. I mean, and the thing about the Attitude Era, and we were pushing an envelope, and of course, once I got the opportunity and Vince took those restrictions off me, and I just kept, the antics. I was always looking for something to do. I wasn't afraid to go out on a limb, push the envelope, and so I think, man, if you watch those old opens, when the pyro was coming down, those explosions, the excitement going into those shows, and it was the Monday Night Wars. Nitro was throwing everything but the kitchen sink at their audience. They were doing, we were doing the same, but there was just that enthusiasm. It was like you're hanging on the edge of your seat. And I think it can go. You can bring. You don't have to even push the envelope that, but bring the energy back and the intensity back. And the angles and the characters, but you don't even have to say one single cuss word. But it's energy. People go in there to be entertained. I mean, you grab them by the damn throat.
I feel like you're going from a 5 to a 6. I feel like we're getting you to 7 right now.
Embrace them, man. Yeah. So people would just hang on the edge of their seats as that show was going on. It was the fastest 2-hour show in the business.
I do remember those. I feel like, the world's gotten a little more touchy with certain things. Like, maybe Val Venus chopping someone's penis off. I don't know if that would fly.
Getting his penis
chopped off. Choppy your pee-pee. When you're in the business, are you keeping apprised of everyone else's storylines? Are you kind of just like, did you know what was going on with the other belts and the other wrestlers, the other nonsense?
Yeah, man. I mean, you really have to, because you want to know what everybody else is doing. But yeah, I'm focused first and foremost on what I'm doing, and I know they're going to hit me with a lot of good stuff. And I was the first guy that would go into a room like this, and and Hunter has told the story, and if I didn't like an idea, once I got hot, because believe me, it took me 7.5 years to get an opportunity to get hot, and I wasn't going to let it slip away. I'd flat out tell you right before live TV, bullshit, that sucks, I ain't doing it. Well, you got a better idea? Nope.
I know that one sucks.
And I'd walk out of the room. I got to come up with something better. I forgot what the actual question was.
Great answer.
Was there a guy back in the Attitude Era? Sorry, was there a guy who had a finisher or a signature move of some sort that every night going out, if you had to work with him, you were like, oh, Jesus Christ, I got to take the chokeslam from Kane tonight? Or was there a specific move that you were just always afraid to take?
No, I was so fortunate. I never took like the recliner thing that the Steiners used to do, or the Road Warriors used to do, the clothesline off top turnbuckle when the other guy was on this guy's shoulders. I was never even asked. I was never put in that position. And with taking the chokeslam from the Undertaker and Kane, both those guys are so big and bad and powerful. I mean, they could pick you up. I mean, you'd give them a boost up, and you're up there in the air. If you watch Taker, I mean, they're taking care of you, and it's all about a flat back landing. But no, I feared nobody's finisher because they were all safe to take. And that was one of the key things. When you're trying to come up with a finish, you want a finish that you can do to someone that weighs 140 and they're 5'6", or 7 foot and 300. And that stunner for me was that perfect finish.
How does that come about?
Fayetteville, North Carolina, right before Monday Night Raw taping. Michael P.S. Hayes of the Fabulous Freebirds. Back when I was playing football in North Texas State in Denton, Texas, Dallas, Texas was 30 miles away. So the Von Erich feud with the Freebirds was famous in Texas and worldwide, really, if you watch World Class Championship Wrestling. So anyway, we're in Fayetteville. He's an agent. He comes up to me. I'd been using the $1 Million Dream because I had been the ringmaster, and we know I need a new finish. And he comes up to me and goes, "Hey, kid, you got a minute? I want to show you something." It's Michael Bird of the Freebirds. And I said, "Yeah, man." So we go into the ring, and there's a couple of enhancement talents, those guys that get beat. There's a couple of those guys around, and he shows me what it is, and I go through it a couple of times. And so that's when the stunner was invented. There, other people have used it, or whatever. Mikey Whipwreck, I think, was using it in ECW, whatever.
No, that's yours, brother. Anybody else who tries to claim that, get the fuck out.
And then, a couple of months went by, and we're like, you know what? You know how Jake the Snake Roberts would do a DDT? Well, he'd always set it up with the short arm clothesline so that you knew what was coming up next. It built the anticipation. So that's when, again, Michael Hayes says, "Man, we need to come up with something. What about a kick to the gut?" So Michael P.S. Hayes was very instrumental in the development of the stunner and the kick before the stunner.
When you were developing that, did you ever think that at one point you would stun the future president of the United States of America?
Man, I tell you what, no. But here's how that went down. I was going to be the referee, and it was team versus team, and whoever's team lost, they were the head of that team, which was Vince and Trump, were going to have to get their head shaved. Of course, you knew Donald Trump wasn't going to get his head shaved because it's pro wrestling, right?
It's also hard to shave a toupee. So
Vince was going to get shaved. So all of a sudden, Vince comes to me, and straight up, this is the way it happened. We're back there. There's 90,000 people out there at Ford Field. And he goes, "Steve, come over here. I'm going to see if I can get Trump to take a stunner." I said, "Oh, bullshit." I said, "You think you will?" He goes, "I know Donald. He'll do it." So anyway, he goes, "Donald, come over here." And he goes, "Steve, this is Donald Trump." I said, "Hey, Mr. Trump, how are you doing?" And I met him. And he goes, "Listen, I was thinking about after everything's all said and done, Steve would hit you with his finish move. Well, what is it? Well, it's called the stunner, and it kind of goes like this. And Donald Trump's right-hand guy all of a sudden goes, oh, no, you don't need to do that. There's a million reasons why you shouldn't do that, and here's why. But Donald said, he looked at Vince, and he goes, you think it'll help the show? He goes, oh, Donald will go crazy. So Donald Trump was man enough to go out there, and now we botched it. It wasn't it wasn't the slickest stunner that I ever delivered, but I give him credit just from it. Whatever anybody's opinion is, that he was cool enough in a Showtime event like that event to go out there and be a part of the show and make people happy. I dug it.
I would say on the spectrum of people who can take and sell a stunner, it's Donald Trump over here, and it's The Rock on the other side.
Oh,
Dwayne Johnson
Well, look at The Rock.
flipping and flailing and jumping out of the
Is
ring
he your
every
favorite
stunner.
sell of all time?
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
he's
who
gotta
would have
be.
figured? That guy, I hit him with that damn stunner, and half the time I had to watch out because he'd crash over me. And The Rock, I mean, dude, he's always been like 275, and when his legs or whatever careened off the ropes and hit you in the head, it's like, God damn, that hurts. And
He did more damage
would've
selling the
thought
stunner.
then, as he was flip flopping around the ring for a stunner, that now today as we speak, he's the biggest movie star in the world.
Unbelievable.
You're welcome, The Rock.
When's he gonna repay you? When you join the Fast
I
franchise?
know,
it's my
man.
it's my favorite franchise there is. I need you.
No, that's great. No, myself and The Rock remain great friends, and he's busy doing his thing, and I'm doing mine. We rarely talk, but as soon as we get in a room together, it's like
that.
time never
That's how you know
went
people
by.
are best friends.
Yes.
When you
You
don't
don't need
ever
to
talk
keep
and you
up.
get in a room,
Yeah.
bam, let's have a beer. We're besties.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable
Besties. I just said
that
Stone Cold and The Rock were besties. I'm fucking out of here.
I love it. I love it. I speaking of having a beer, we would like to offer you a beer. I'd like to sit down and have one with you if you don't mind while we talk about Straight Up with Steve Austin.
Yeah.
The new show. Pass me some Steve Weisers as they're called.
God, are you guys ribbing me? Really?
I mean, we don't have this. We don't have this.
Can I wrap this in a napkin?
Yeah, that's sure.
Here's
sure,
the
brother, 'cause
thing.
We know you got the.
Yeah,
you
no. Here's
got
the
your
thing.
IPA.
We got a chance.
You don't have them in New York.
They called. Mom's a word. They called me to go down to Tampa a few weeks ago for the Raw reunion. I said, hey, man, I'll be able to bring my Broken Skull IPA, right? And, so I brought a case of it down there, and then they covered some dummy beers for all the superstars because I didn't have enough at the time. So, yeah, I'm drinking this with you
know
guys,
what?
but I got a
Broken Skull IPA
Broken
is
Skull
the
IPA,
way to go.
the best
Yeah.
IPA in America, and that's the bottom line. Not just because I said so, because it fucking is.
So we got Straight Up with Steve Austin.
Yep.
It is, I mean, the trailer that we saw has people ranging from Gabriel Iglesias, Rob Riggle, I think
Baker.
Baker Mayfield. So you got every walk of life kind of living the Stone Cold Steve Austin life in a way, right?
Yep. Yeah, it was a lot of fun, man. I got a phone call from people at USA Network, well, from my agents. Says, hey, man, USA wants to pitch your show. And I guess based on, what they've seen me do, hosting other stuff, my podcast, they figured, hey, this might be make for a good TV show. Kind of a day in the life with. And so, myself and a celebrity guest, we'll go out and do some activities, whether it's something that they're used to doing or something that comes from my world. And then we bond over that, have conversation. I ask them, how they, succeeded, got to the level they're at, or what's going on with them, like Dale Jr. as far as his retirement from the sport, one of the most beloved drivers in the history of NASCAR. So it's a show where it's a good time, and we're not just sitting around. We're doing cool stuff, and I'll always challenge them to stuff. Everything's about a world championship to me. So it's a show that appealed to me because I love doing my podcast. And
Is that funny for you? It just seems like podcasting to me. We've been doing it for years now, and it's kind of like a internet nerdy thing. And it's become so popular. And for someone like yourself, who's like this crazy entertainer, this big wrestler, it's like now you just talk on the mic, and you were very fucking good at it.
You know what though is so funny or so interesting about that? When I first started doing the podcast thing, I wanted to start a year before I did, but I didn't know anything about the technology of it or how to get it out there. So Podcast One called my agent, and they were looking for people that might maybe have some success at it. And they said, hey, man, Podcast One calls. You interested in doing a podcast? I said, you goddamn right I am. And so what it has done for me, once I left WWE, I had to retire for some injuries. And so you lose that global platform, and obviously WWE, is a gigantic, machine. So the podcast at least gave me a voice with which to voice my opinion, talk with people, and still entertain the fans that I worked my ass off for all those years, to build that fan base, to have communication with them. So it's a line of communication as I look to it. And, I hope that Straight Up Steve Austin hits. I want to continue it, but I'll continue my podcast just because it's my voice to the world, and and I'm able to stay in touch with them. And that's I hate to use the word organic, but that's really
it is.
That's
yeah,
the
I mean,
organic
it's the most
part of it.
natural, authentic type of outlet there is.
And by the same token, I mean, there's periods of times I took a 6-month break just because I needed a break because there was a lot of things going on. But, man, I could be pretty damn antisocial. So we about half antisocial do a podcast. It's like, I don't feel like talking to a motherfucker right now. So I do a Q&A. But it's a lot of fun. And you know what? When I started doing that podcast and people get a chance to listen to me talk, and all of a sudden, and just the same thing happened when I moved to L.A. 15 years ago. I'd walk into a room and people think, hey, man, Stone Cold's coming. Bolt down everything. Might get it. He's going to be mad. He's going to be crazy. He's going to cuss at everybody. He's going to flip chairs over, and he's probably going to be drunk. All of a sudden, people realize that I actually had a sense of humor.
Yeah.
And so it enabled me to kind of grow, or people to realize that wasn't who and what I am 24/7, 365.
I mean, I can understand where they're coming from, but for anybody to not get that you're a humorous guy, I mean, like,
crazy.
You were very funny, I guess more towards the end, but you really leaned into the comedy thing even when you were still wrestling.
Yeah, but we had to because when Booker T put me through that table at the Meadowlands Arena when he made his debut, it broke 3 transverse processes in my back. So I couldn't do anything to elicit heat or beat anybody up because I was in so much pain and physically unable. So, and then when I even started getting into, back into the ring, man, there was a doctor in every dressing room waiting to shoot me full of 60 milligrams of Toradol, which is a non-narcotic painkiller, but you feel nothing. So, the doctor's shooting me up. So we relied on comedy just to further storylines, further the heel turn with which I had went down, which in hindsight, retrospect, 2020, I should have never turned heel, but I pushed the envelope and grew the character.
So you're a classic funny guy. You're being funny to mask the pain.
Yeah,
that's what
You
we all
just had
do.
physical hurt.
How big of a pain in the ass was the what era? I mean,
Still going on, kind of.
yeah, like every time you speak, you have to speak in pause, like chunks.
And I broke that out when I was leaving a voicemail on Christian's phone, and I just was leaving this message, and I don't know why you don't answer your phone. What? And you're trying to avoid me. What? And after I hung up, and I left about a 2-minute voice message, and I was thinking because I was a heel at the time. And I was thinking, man, you could really use this as in an irritating fashion, like to talk about talk to you and then just say what, and totally blow you off.
So
and
smug,
disrespect
yeah.
That's how it was intended. And then, of course, as a catchphrase, when I turned back, baby, to just put the pregnant pause in there, the what's going to come. And so everybody started, I'm hated. I'm loved and hated for creating the WhatChan, and it's so easy to work around it because if I continue to talk like this, you have no ability to say what
can't get
because
it in.
of cadence.
Yeah.
So you can't escape the WhatChan, and these days I think it's starting to diminish a little bit because I think the crowd wants to tune in and hear what these the WWE superstars want to say, and it's just such a. In a way, sometimes wrestling fans are their own worst enemies because they can ruin so many moments. You go to the Hall of Fame and they're catcalling, and there's guys and girls out there that work their balls off or their ovaries off to get in the Hall of Fame, and they're trying to pour out their heart or say thank you, and you still got it, and all this other stuff. Like, dude, just be quiet so they can get their message across.
Yeah.
The WhatChan is like kind of a barometer of whether or not someone can work with a crowd now, though, because if
gotta
they
know.
can mix up the cadence and prevent it from happening, it's like, all right, well, they can improv. They know what they're doing.
And when I went to Tampa to do that reunion, I briefly started it so they could go back and get a little nostalgia in there, and then I sped up the cadence and continued with the message. But yeah, it's both
Just in the
occurring.
palm of your hand,
Control the
still to
crowd.
this day.
Yeah. I mean, that's wild to me. Like, and because you really didn't come from like a wrestling background per se, like generations of family, right? You were
No,
and
I'm just
you're
a
not-
wrestling fan.
right?
Yeah.
But and no like. Was there any classical training as far as acting and entertaining and all that? So you just
You see the low budget movies I did? No.
so for you to just step in the ring, like grab a mic and like you work your way up, sure. But when you're controlling an arena of people, whether down to what they're saying or not saying, and you're just technically a regular fucking guy, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, and it's really fun. And it was funny because we went out to Tampa for that reunion show, and all of a sudden I kind of get the message about what we're going to do. And it's a family reunion. So, you know, and I'm kind of thanking everybody and, you know, paying homage to my brothers and sisters who went up down the road with me. And I'm like, hey, man, this is very unstone cold Steve Austin-ish. And so I just ad-libbed the promo. But when I went out there and I got a massive pop and I drank those beers, and when I got those 3 hell yeahs out of that crowd, I got the first one, and while I was testing the crowd. That was actually an experiment.
Right.
And I'm thinking the whole time I'm out there, and I don't know what I'm going to say next. So I got a second one, and I said, I know I can get a third one, and that's going to be the loudest one. And they did. And that's when these guys are in for a ride. And there was a Sea of 316 church out there, so a lot of them were there to see me, so it was a great feeling. And then I just started talking. But, yeah, it's an interesting dynamic because also I had to deal with the 40 superstars who were out there and bring them down to the ring. Because if I would have just go out there and talk on a microphone for 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes, I can. but what I couldn't do was make them feel like they had their thumbs up their asses and they're just hanging around this window dressing.
Right.
So I didn't want to alienate them. So we did it all, and it turned out gangbusters. And then I threw that mic up in there, and I said, hey, man, I picked it back up and said, how much time we got left? Someone said 60 seconds. And I ain't been on live TV in a long time, but I love being on live TV. Says, all right, I can make chicken salad out of chicken shit. Started talking to Jerry Briscoe, and it was a great feeling. So being able to take people on a ride is fun.
Well, that's why I have no doubt in my mind that Straight Up with Steve Austin will be a success, because I don't care what format you're in, you got the gift of gab and you know how to talk to people. So I'm very interested to see it. Premieres on August 12th, Monday night on USA, back to the old USA Network. So thank you so much for the years of wrestling, and appreciate you coming through.
Man, I appreciate you guys having me on the show. And, you know, I'm getting handed the audience from which I came from, but also, you know, I hope to be able to grow the show to people, because I do have a fan base now that doesn't even realize I did wrestle.
Right.
So to come back to my roots, get handed that audience, but then try to grow it. And that being said, I mean, you know, there's learning steps, there are learning curves along the way in this new journey. This is a different job than I've ever had. So I learned a lot, and I want to apply it again to season 2. So everybody set your fucking DVRs and watch the show so we get season 2.
Let's do it.
That's the bottom line, brother.
Stone Cold said so.
Thank you so much.